Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Premier League panel show. We got a smaller panel today, some last minute scheduling over here, but we got a good show, a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here, representing the Reds, and with us, as always, is Jake with the Spurs. What's going on, Jake?
Just still living off that high of a 90 plus 10-minute winner, so gonna stay there for a little bit.
Those are sometimes better than just winning the game in 2-1, to be fair, especially when you're playing like Sheffield United or something like that.
It'd be too boring.
Yeah, I'm sure the heart doctors do not agree, but still, it makes it more fun. I was going to say everybody should be happy over here. Representing Fulham is Alex, squeaking in the 1-0 over Luton Town. Was that like squeaky bum time or? Oh, your mic is off.
Here we go. Only because if you watch it, they had a back six for most of the first half, which is something that I wasn't quite sure was tactically available to most teams. So a win is a win over. I think a lot of clubs will find that 3 points is 3 points this year against Luton. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's one of those things, right? Like you either gonna probably hammer them or you're going to have issues. Like and we were talking before we went live. I mean, like Sheffield when they were playing Tottenham, and I saw them up late into the game. I was like, dude, this could be like a season saver for them, getting 3 points where people are struggling to even score goals on the bottom of the table. And then when it turned around and they lost 2-1, I was like, yep, they're probably going down then at this rate, kind of a deal. But so let's take a look at the scores. A couple of surprises, perhaps, or I don't know. I mean, Jake, let's start with you. Anything that caught your eye? Do we consider Brighton beating United away a surprise at this stage?
I mean, not if you look at their recent head-to-head matchups. It's been pretty commonplace for Brighton. They have Manchester United's number, but I mean, to go do it at Old Trafford is always a tough job. So I would call that a surprise. But yeah, I think it was Alex who said early on that Brighton were real contenders, and he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they're showing. I'll be honest, man. I mean, obviously, it's a joy to watch United being torn apart, regardless of who they're playing. But I mean, that Brighton team, Alex, is just for a neutral, for somebody who likes the sports and watches it just for fun. If you just turn it on, I mean, I'm a soccer junkie. Like, if I turn it on and just Mexican league or whatever it is, I'll just like start watching it because it's the game. I mean, for somebody who likes the game, that Brighton team is like a pure joy to watch how they play the game.
Yeah, if you watch, I think it was their second goal. I think the Brighton tweeted out, I think 30 plus passes in that second or the third. I can't remember which one it was. But just fantastic. And I think United did not help themselves. If you look at some of the effort on some of these goals, I think it was the second one as well. The ball's just kind of floating around in the box. And if you're a United fan, you're going, excuse me, what? Martinez is throwing himself all over the pitch. Happy if you're a Brighton fan and pretty displeased if you're a United fan.
Yeah, I mean, looks like Brighton looks to be and this is after losing some key pieces. I mean, pretty much your main part of your midfield with more like McAllister and Caicedo leaving, and for them to still make that much money and then still find even more gems to put in there is pretty darn impressive. I would like to get some people from there into our scouting group because they sure can find the gems. Let's start with the top. Wolves, Liverpool. This is what I wanted to ask you guys. I mean, the international breaks. So let's start with that because as Liverpool, we dread them. And especially the first morning games, which somehow we're constantly scheduled for because this team is always, I don't know if it's something that we spoke into existence and Klopp did. But how do you guys feel about like, Jake, how do you feel about Tottenham when they're coming back from an international break? Is that more like they're going to come back better? Or is that pause the question like God knows what we're going to get?
I don't think anyone on the club side of things likes the international breaks because there's always that risk of injury. And it feels like, at least from a fan perspective, you always feel like your team suffers the most injuries from international breaks. So I'm not a fan of them in general because of that. And you always seem a little sluggish coming back. And especially Liverpool. I know Klopp complains a lot about those early morning games. So having that right after an international break, I think they were just doing it to try to get a reaction out of him.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, Pierce was constant, like on purpose asking him to get him going, and he wasn't having any of it. He just like snapped back at him, that's when I like Klopp actually, when he snaps back at James Pierce. That's when it's fun. But how about Fulham? I mean, I think in Premier League, pretty much every team sends a majority of their squad. I'm assuming it's the same for you guys too, right now. I mean, do you notice a difference when they come back from the international break, good or bad?
Yeah, I think the only difference that we notice as fans is when someone's hurt, right? So Jedi Robinson got hurt. He picked up a little bit, not bad, but picked up a knock and didn't play against Luton, which definitely affected the game, right? Timothy Castagne steps in and played very, very well, 7 or 8 out of 10 performance, but just isn't the same player as Jedi, and so that really kind of hurt Fulham a bit. So no, I don't particularly love heading off international breaks, but it is what it is. It's fun to see your players.
There are no injuries. Do you guys feel like, does the momentum get interrupted? Is a good way to kind of restart? Like, let's say Spurs, for example, Jake, you guys that were on a roll. Is there a worry that, man, we should have kept going while the roll was there kind of a deal?
Absolutely. But you can't control, what kind of form you're in going into those international breaks. So it helps some teams and hurts others. And I think in this case, that's why Tottenham started so slow, like Liverpool did. They had some momentum going to the break, lost it, and then just did not pick up where they left off right away, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that was a horrific first half. I mean, it's always good to see your team come back and shows resilience and stuff like that, like the Spurs did, go until the last minute, even though you're not happy that you had to, take heart medicine to keep going through the game. You like the fact that your team goes till the freaking 100th minute or whatever to get the win. This one, I mean, it's good to see the comeback, but I know when we were talking about in the post-match, I didn't give a lot to having like grit or anything like that. It was more like recovering from your earlier nap in the game. What I wanted to ask you guys is, obviously we talk a lot about it on our channel, but how was Liverpool viewed? Like, Alex, let's start with you. Like, how do you view this Liverpool team right now? People look at it as, because we've squeaked in a couple of wins. We've had a comfortable win against Villa, but is it looked at as a team, man, they're going to be tough again because they know how to win? Or is it looked at as a team that is kind of like hopping here, hopping there, and actually not going to be able to hop and flop?
I don't know. I think I would if I had to put them in one of two camps, I'd put them in the first one you said of, I think they're a good team. I think I said a couple weeks ago before I went on vacation that like the Newcastle match that they ended up winning, I think I was the only one with you, Timothy, that called that. I want to put that out there. I said this is the type of game that Liverpool have to win if they want to compete for a championship. That's at the end of the day, they have to go to St. Andrews Park. Now, and up until Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was, Newcastle had lost 3 on the bounce after that. So maybe not as impressive, but early in the season, I put Liverpool absolutely right up there with some of the best teams in the league. Now everybody plays the same 38, so we'll have to see at the end. But no, I would put them more in a strong team than a fluky team at this point.
How about you, Jake?
Yeah, I think they're a strong team that have some off games. I think they're really going to kick themselves for that draw against Chelsea, the way that Chelsea have been performing against other sides. So I don't know. I think they're a good team with some bad days rather than a mediocre team with some good days.
And I just to touch on that too as well. I think we're seeing that the Premier League, there are a cadre of teams at the bottom that are pretty bad, but the mid-table is actually really strong. There are some good teams, and Wolves, who we thought were going to be cannon fodder all year long and might end up being that, actually played pretty tough. Bournemouth scored first in Liverpool, and Liverpool obviously the quality shown out, but like even City are going down to teams like there are good teams in the mid tier of this league that you're going to have to you can't just rock up. You're going to have to come to play.
It feels like Wolves had, I mean, honestly, Wolves had, I know Raul Jimenez was still there and, kicking it around. I think Wolves win that game because he does not miss what that dude missed. I mean, even in the United game, I saw the same exact thing. Like Wolves would keep countering over and over and over again, catch, United 3-on-2 and 4-on-3 and stuff like that and not get anything out of it. Yeah. But sometimes when you keep saying that about a team, that's their recipe for disaster right there, and they might not start. I think the only thing that's tricky about these teams that really kind of suck right now is the fact that the bottom of the table. So let's take a look at that, I guess. But if you look at the bottom of the table, Jake, there's like, you look at Everton and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Arsenal had a tougher time with them, but still, obviously they just can't score goals. They've scored 2 goals in 5 games. But if you're an Everton fan, you're probably saying, hey, man, thank God there's other people around us who suck. But there's like 5-6 teams over there that are really struggling.
Yeah, my brother's actually an Everton fan, and he said that. Yeah, I know. I tell him that every day. But he said that Arsenal game was just one of those Everton games where they could have played for 300 minutes and not scored. So that's not something that you want to say about your team, especially when you need those points at the bottom of the table desperately. They've been very close to being relegated the last 2 seasons. And at the beginning of the season, I had them on my short list for relegation this year. So, I mean, they got to switch it on. I know Burnley and Luton have struggled early on. It happens as a newly promoted side. I don't think Wolves are in the clear by any means. Obviously, only 3 points. But I don't know. It can be pretty congested at the bottom. And with Manchester City being who they are, it's usually far more interesting to watch the battle at the bottom than the top.
Yes, sadly, that is true. But so do you see Spurs as being able to challenge, or like does a game like Sheffield United game kind of scare you a little bit and be like, yeah, maybe we're not ready?
Yes and no, because, Spurs of 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe even last year, they go down 1-0 in the 73rd minute, and they don't find an equalizer, and we lose 1-0 to Sheffield United at home, and that just was who we are. And now, the mentality is a little bit different, and people, like the fans, were still behind the team even down 1-0 in the 80 plus 90 plus minute. So I don't know. There's a much different atmosphere at games and just around the club in general. I don't think we can contend with Manchester City, but I think it is not unrealistic to say that we should finish in a Champions League spot.
Oh, yeah, I think so too, definitely. I mean, if nothing else, for mainly the fact that I don't see like United and Chelsea kind of like climbing out of they're digging themselves a pretty big hole every week that hole is getting bigger to climb out of, it feels like. For your boys there, Alex, how comfortable are you with where the team is right now? We kind of talked about that middle pack there, right? You guys are right in the middle now as 10th. Is that like so far so good kind of a deal, or is it concerning?
No, I think it's so far so good. I mean, I think we all pegged the start of this year as a pretty tough set of fixtures to kick off, and then we get dumped with Spurs in the Carabao Cup, and we're like, geez, we cannot catch a break here. But I think, so honestly, that result doesn't really mean much in the scheme of things for Fulham, but it's kind of a nice little feather in the cap, and then to get results like we did against Arsenal to get anything out of that is awesome. So no, I think we have a nice little run of fixtures here that look good for Fulham. I think at the beginning of every year, the idea is a point a game. If you can stick to a point a game, you're more than likely 95% going to stay up. And 7 points from the first 5 is beating that. So until that's how you consolidate as a mid-table Premier League club, is you just kind of set those targets. Honestly, you set those targets, and you have to consolidate before you can think about Europe and this, that, and the other. It's better to stake your claim.
How different?
Go ahead.
How different is the feeling around Fulham now than it was at the start of the year? Did you have, if you were told at the beginning of the year 7 points out of 5 after 5 games, is that good? Okay.
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah. If you had said 7 points out of 5, you don't get to pick the 7, or you don't get to pick the 7 points, but you're just going to get them. Take it in my heartbeat. I'd rather not lose to Brentford 3-0 after a shit red card, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, points to points. So, I would take that for sure. Especially with the 5 to start the year. It's not an easy run of fixtures. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a tricky, because I saw like a graph showing like opposition, like like fixtures so far and stuff like that, and Fulham did look like they had like the rougher end of things. I like how Alex found a way to rub that cup game in though. Like he did not want
I
that
had
to
to.
go just
Come
away. He was
on.
like, I'm just mentioning this as a side topic, but I like how you did that. That was slick. That was
The
slick.
hero, Merrick Rodak. Come on. How could I not?
So let's talk about that. Obviously, the Champions League action started. The last two games, Europa and the Conference League and stuff like that tomorrow. Jake, how do you think that will affect the league, or which teams do you think it will affect more than others in terms of like the schedule, what they have to play, and the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I've been harping on this all year. I think it's going to be the teams that aren't used to being in Europe. So I don't think City and Liverpool are going to have a tough time managing their load of games going forward. But I do think the Brightons and the Villas will struggle in the league when they have to play these European matches midweek and just have a congested schedule and have to rotate more. I think that's going to be a tough challenge for them. Arsenal seem to be doing fine so far in their first fixture, and I think they might do pretty well in the Champions League. I think they have a relatively easy group, all things considered. But yeah, I don't think they're going to let it affect their league form at all. I know we talked, I think it was before the podcast, about them last year in the Europa League, and you thinking that was going to be the downfall for them. But it was kind of the opposite. Once they were out of the Europa League, their league form actually dropped. So maybe it's that momentum of doing well in Europe that can carry that over into the league.
Yeah, that was odds. Because, throughout the season, I thought once these Thursday night games kick in, they're going to have a tough time, and that's when City will catch up with them. And so when they got eliminated, kind of like unexpectedly, I was like, oh, maybe they can go all the way now. And it kind of backfired. But is that, Alex, mainly because will that be different for them this year? Because it felt like last year it was a team constantly couldn't drive forward because they were constantly looking at the rearview mirror. And I think when you don't have that Thursday game and you don't have like, oh, we got to play again in 3 days, I feel like sometimes Liverpool, I mean, apart from the injuries, that kind of helps when we have to play again. We have to play again. We have to play again because you build a momentum and you're like, you win. And it becomes a habit. Whereas it looked like Arsenal, the moment they got eliminated from Europe, all they did was like look at the rearview mirror and see City just like barreling down on them. You think they will do better this year, having learned from that? Maybe that losing that title last year was a learning experience.
I mean, if you're Alan, you hope so. And if you're
maybe that's why he's not here. He's praying.
Yeah, you hope so. I mean, it can't hurt that having that experience and knowing what that feels like. I think that's something that a good manager will pull out of the squad is kind of building in that muscle memory of this is what it feels like. This is what it felt like last year to do this, to go to Belgrade on a Thursday night and then to fly home for a Sunday fixture against Chelsea. Like, this is what this is like. So doing it again can't hurt. Now, I think what we talked about, Dick, you mentioned earlier, the teams that are going to struggle. I think Arsenal Liverpool are in a position to handle that kind of thing significantly better than a club like West Ham, who are, what on earth are they going to do when they have to go to Bratislava on a Wednesday night? Like, this is so. I think Arsenal will be able to handle it, especially with a manager like Arteta. A good manager will kind of be able to rotate effectively and kind of get everybody involved and everybody moving. I mean, City could play away in Europe and fly an entire second team and probably eke out a point in the group stage. So it's like these type of games
aren't. Pep, he's worried about injuries. The squad is not deep enough.
Yeah. Please.
Well, I'll be honest though, like I was telling John this on this morning show, when I saw their lineup this week against West Ham, and you look at that bench, it didn't look so hot.
Yeah.
And now I think they lost Silva. I don't know how bad the injury is or whatever the case might be. But so Alex, I'm sorry. So do you, as a Fulham fan, kind of like, oh, great, European games are here? Because then when you meet them on a weekend, like take on a team that was playing during the week, you have a more rested, fresher team as opposed to their backups?
Yeah, to some extent, especially for teams like Villa and like West Ham, like Brighton. No, I'm never going to bet against Brighton. I think they're just probably going to rabbit out of a hat this year kind of thing. But yeah, when you play City and Arsenal and Liverpool, no, because at the end of the day, the quality in the Premier League often wins out. But for the mid-table teams who are in Europe, absolutely, that helps. If they have to travel to some far-flung outpost of Europe, for a Thursday and Wednesday night game, absolutely, they're playing on Saturday or Sunday for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for example, Jake, you guys are taking on Arsenal. I mean, yeah, they made easy work of it, but regardless, it's more miles. I guess it maybe helps their confidence to have that win, but at the same time, you're gonna have a more fresher Spurs out there than Arsenal, or you think that's like a very little marginal difference?
I think it would be a bigger difference if this was 2 months down the line when they had played,
Sure.
5 or 6 games in Europe, and their squad's getting a little tired. I think they're still very fresh. They had the international break and then just one league game since then. So I think, like we talked about, I think that Arsenal are going to ride that momentum and play very well on Sunday against Spurs. I was surprised that Arteta didn't make subs earlier today. They're up 3-0 at half, and they made no halftime changes, which shows how seriously he's taking the Champions League. So I don't know. I want them to be tired. I want Spurs to go out and just run circles around them and get a good result away at Arsenal for the first time in however many years. But no, I think that they're going to come out energized off that win. They didn't have to travel. It was a home game, and they play home again on Sunday. So I think it's all leading up to two high energy teams coming off good results facing each other in a North London derby that will be very exciting.
I really was hoping Alan was going to be here, Alex.
I know.
I was just gonna just set the fire, set the feud. You and I would just kick back and just watch the whole thing blow up. That was the game plan. But
that's it.
Hopefully next week. So if we go back to this, and this is going to be kind of like the discussion I want to have with you guys now. Obviously, we talked about the Chelsea woes, and we talked about United. Jake, you already had the tease because I gave you the question before we got started over here. So we'll buy Alex some time, and I'll ask you first. If death not being an option, would you rather be a United fan right now, or would you rather be a Chelsea fan?
Ooh, you did let me know about this before the show, and I was supposed to be thinking about it. I think I'd have to go with Chelsea just because there's less turmoil surrounding the coach versus the players, and the players, involving themselves in scandals off the pitch. So I think Chelsea have a better structure to turn things around, where it's more just like what's happening on the field isn't working. That's the only thing you have to figure out, where it's like United have to figure out their entire locker room situation. And there's so much more than just what's happening on the pitch. So I'm going to go with Chelsea. I wouldn't want to be either club right now, but that's, goes without saying. So if I had to pick, death not an option, I would say Chelsea.
Alex, pick a side. I mean, the red or the blue?
We all know what I have to pick. I'm not going to say I wish I was a Chelsea fan. That's not going to happen. But I think for similar reasons, though, because I think maybe they're neighbors and maybe there's a lot of crossover with Chelsea and Fulham there in West London. But I genuinely think I'd rather be a United fan. I think Bowley, I really do. I think the whole Glazer mess right now has been hanging over the club for however many years. I think they just announced that they're going to pull the bid and they don't want to sell anymore. Who knows? But at the end of the day, Chelsea is a hot mess. And I think that the play on the field is a reflection of that in maybe a different way than United, where there's now seems to be like a quietly open power struggle between Ten Hag and whoever else is pulling the strings. But this isn't also new for Chelsea. This was happening last year. They went on a run of fixtures where I think they were bottom of the form table for a bit in the Premier League. And genuinely looked like they could be relegated. Now, that was never going to happen, but for a while there, they were one of the worst, if not the worst.
You're saying you had a little hope, though. Is that what you're saying?
Oh my God, more than
you were hope. So there's a chance.
Oh God, it was cool, fantastic. But no, I think that truly, Chelsea are a hot man. I think you see what Bowley's doing, where he's offering guys 8-year deals and trying to just weird stuff, and he doesn't know any. There's all these anecdotes from meetings he's in where he's asking about players, and he's bring that guy in, and they're like, no, we can't do that. So I don't know, that kind of ownership is long-term bad news, and I would not want any part of that.
See, that's interesting, because I think you're the first person that has answered United, and I'm putting that on the Chelsea hates mostly.
I mean,
right?
definitely, for sure.
It's
like when
you
have two pundits and they have to say opposite things, but I was never going to say Chelsea. So if you had said United 2, Jake, would have been like 100% agree. That's it. United for sure.
We got to script this shit better than because
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the reasons that Jake went over, I think I go with Chelsea over United just because it feels like this is what we got to sort, as opposed to we got to sort this, and then without sorting all these, it doesn't feel like they can sort the field. But at the same time, I do understand what you mean about the Chelsea ownership, but I feel like at least he keeps like shoveling in talents in there. I mean, mind you, they're all overpaid, but I don't know how these contracts are going to come back and bite them in the ass. Obviously, we know their connections to the Saudi league, so they might be able to dump some of these contracts there down the road. Because I mean, we know how this stuff looks in baseball. I mean, I can't stand baseball personally. I don't know if you guys follow it, but I know there are teams, that are paying guys that retired like 5 years ago and stuff, and he's still collecting a check. And I felt like, man, this is gonna come to bite them in the ass in like 5 years over here when you're paying guys who are no longer there or who are like, really on the way down. In terms of ownership alone, Jake, would you rather have Glazers or would you rather have Todd just like making it rain over there?
Is death an option?
Yeah, this one it is.
Nope, still off the table.
Ooh, this one's tricky. I don't know. I think Alex is right when he says the stuff about Boy, and it's just not a good look. And I know the Glazer stuff is also bad, but it's been bad and kind of numb to it now because it's been so long. And it's like just sell the team, where it's like Boy's not going to sell, so you're stuck with him, and he's just going to keep doing this dumb financial decisions, which is a bad look for Americans in general. But I would have to go just by default the Glazers because I wouldn't want it to be Boley.
I mean, because ultimately the Glazers still spend money, just not in that smart way, Alex. It just feels like they just don't have the right people. So they overpay people that they should not. They make changes where they should not. So it's almost hard to put it on the managers coming in, because if every manager is having the same problem, the common denominator has to be the people above, you would think.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I think that is a very big similarity between the two of them, where if you look at right now what's going on, like, do you see any type of long-term vision with either of them? Where it's like, I know it was a Poch, right? But is there any, like, beyond him being a big manager, is there any full backing and like, this is what we're going to do? Like you see with Ange Postecoglou, where it's like, we're going to ride with this and it's going to be a little wild maybe for a bit, but like we are building to this. And with De Zerbi at Brighton, this is what we're doing and we're going for it. Do you see that at United or at Chelsea? The second they have another long downturn, Poch is gone. Ten Hag, if it continues like this, he will not make it through the year. So like, and then you're starting over again. So both of these teams have this ownership where it's just like, we need to do this right now. And how do you build any type of consistency with that? And you can buy players in and you can stay kind of good, but to really challenge, you can't. You need an actual system and movement in place.
Yeah, it's like zero consistency. And you got to figure, Jake, it has to affect the players where there's so much like instability. But I think that's why I kind of go back to, I don't know if there are problems in the Chelsea locker room, aside from maybe not enough lockers for people, so they have to use the second one. But when you look at United, they have so much other stuff going on. I mean, obviously off the field stuff, then you have like really drama with characters like Sancho, who was like a young talent that came for a lot of money, Maguire, a big-headed talent that came for a lot of money and didn't pan out and was your captain at one point. So it feels like they have a lot more cleanup, but at the same time, they look like, somehow to me, they look closer to taking that step compared to Chelsea. I can't put my finger on it why, even though I agree with exactly what you're saying. I think I'd rather be a Chelsea fan. It feels like, even you look at the Bayern game today, it feels like United are closer. They just need a right tweak or two. You just don't have the confidence that those tweaks are going to come.
I think it might be because we've seen United do this before, where they start slow and there's like some drama going on behind the scenes, and then they just somehow turn it around. Like I remember even like last season, like I didn't think for a while that they were going to make a top four, and then they did easily. So I don't know. I feel like maybe they've been there, done that, where it's like Chelsea have been somewhat consistent before last season, where they've just been around the top six conversation and haven't really had those big dips in form. And then it happened with the manager carousel started for Chelsea, and United had a similar manager carousel, and now you have players that were bought by 5 different coaches, and now the current manager has to sort it all out. So both in bad positions, but yeah, I agree. It does kind of feel like United are closer to maybe being a good team again.
Do you feel that, Alex? Since you picked United, I assume you do, but it feels like they are closer. Man, it's so hard to answer these questions because I can feel the Chelsea hate coming in the back. It's like steam. I don't know if that's blur from that or it's just steam from like the hate.
It's both. It's sauna here now. No, I think, I mean, especially look at how they played today. And even, I mentioned earlier, they did not look good against Brighton. Part of that is Brighton looked real good. So that's part of it. The other part is a couple of those goals, they were jogging and did not look interested and did not look like they were at the races. And then you compare that with today, and they scored 3 times against Bayern Munich. They looked okay. And you compare that with Chelsea and their draw against Bournemouth, and you're kind of like, is that what we're comparing this against? For on the field and possibility of reaching a higher level in the table, I go United because I just don't think Chelsea are a good team this year. I really don't. I think they are more steps away, like you said.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And I think, like Jake says, I mean, I was afraid of this. I freaking might have talked it into existence. All preseason, I talked about, getting people in early. I was like, I don't want to lose some points in the first week, second week, and then come April, be like, God damn it, if we had those points kind of thing. And the Chelsea game, despite, it's not like we dominated and they got away or anything like that, but still feels like that. Especially when you look now, that should have been 2 points that we had. Okay, so let's play this game before we go into this weekend's predictions. Let's play this game, and you guys tell me who's going to last longer over here. So let's look at Chelsea's schedule coming up, and man, that kind of looks rough. So you got Villa at home. Then you got Brighton in the FL Cup. You got to figure it's going to be like backups there. Then look at that. Fulham away. That should be fun. Burnley away. Then Arsenal at home. And then obviously then after that international break, Arsenal comes. Then Brentford. Then Tottenham. Then freaking City. Then Newcastle. So look at that. Let's look at this over here. This is United's schedule coming up. Burnley away. Obviously you have some like you have Crystal Palace back-to-back. One of them is the Cup. One of them is the League. But then they have Brentford, Sheffield United away. And then I think they have, after the national break, they have the City. And then look at that, away at Fulham. Looking at those, Jake, who survives longer or one of those managers not survive and be able to scroll as low as I did?
I mean, just on paper, looking at the fixtures and form right now, looks like Chelsea definitely have it tougher, and they can't score as it stands. So I think if there's one that is going to be on the hot seat in the next few matches, it's going to be Pochettino. And there's kind of a short leash with a lot of managers that they've had in the past at Chelsea. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would like to see him stay longer and kind of be a project manager, but Chelsea doesn't really do that very often. And even when they do, they're lying. They say, "Oh, we're gonna have a project manager," and then 4 games in a row without winning, and he's gone.
Oh, just kidding. Bring on the next guy. So, Alex, what do you think? Who survives? Or, I mean, or does Pochettino, if they do have a bad run if they continue this form, we don't want to say bad, the current form, which is not good. Are either of them in danger? I mean, we talked about the Glazers. They want to sell, but now really it's a bad time to sell. it's probably a good time to buy that team. Kind of like the team that's buying Everton. It's like shopping at Goodwill of Premier League clubs and then just like grabbing them while they're down. So do you think who will be in better shape, let's say next international break or right after international break? And do either of them are in danger of getting kind of canned?
I mean, I guess technically they're both in danger. I think if you've seen some of the public comments from Ten Hag, that makes me pretty nervous that he's out here, not bad mouthing anybody, but he's been fairly vocal defending himself. So that always makes you nervous when there's an open rift like that. The weird thing is I haven't heard anything about Poch at all, which is kind of weird he's just kind of there. Bowley strikes me as that ownership group strikes me as the kind of thing that they would lose, and then literally 6 hours later, there'd be a weird tweet about thanking him for his service, and we'd all be like, the fuck? What? Is he gone? I don't understand. So I would not doubt if that happened at all. I mean, I'm not in the prediction business, but I think it'd be fantastic if Fulham sent them both packing. I don't know, a loss to little old Fulham just sends them both down the road. But
I'm all for that.
I know. I think in a weird way, I think the European matches might help United. Like, kind of, it draws a little bit of the attention away from the league. And I think as long as the wheels don't come off any further than they have come off, which with United, who knows? It might happen. But I feel like he's a little bit safer than Poch is, just because I have no idea what Bowley and company think of Poch. No, I mean, I haven't heard anything. If they keep this form up, it would not strike me. Because how many games did Graham Potter get? Like 10 or something?
Yeah, I think you only need two hands to count them. I think
it wasn't a lot. So who knows? Yeah, I would not be feeling super comfy if I rather them.
And maybe Pochettino maybe is the right guy for that job in that sense, Jake, because he's not. I mean, if it was Mourinho or somebody there, for example, or if it was Conte over there, they are going to be like, I didn't even want this freaking guy, kind of a thing, and would call them up. Pochettino doesn't really roll like that. He kind of takes the high road and is like, yeah, we got to improve. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go, kind of a deal. So does that, is that why he was brought in, maybe? Because he's not going to be as vocal and let Todd kind of do his own grocery shopping?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons for sure. At Spurs, he was very likable, and the ownership liked him a lot, and it took a long string of not getting a result on the road for him to finally, get canned. So I think that's one of the reasons why he was brought in. He's a good soldier and will, kind of be a good face for the team, and the management might keep him longer because of that. But obviously, there is a limit. And, I'm not saying he's close to it, but if it continues like this, he could definitely be in danger. Ten Hag's just kind of weird. So I wouldn't, just a weird dude. So I wouldn't be surprised if he, it was let go either, because just an interesting fella.
He's an odd bird.
Yeah, he is. But he does actually, at least he's looking like the guy, either he's fed up. It's almost like he's up to here with me. Like every press conference, he's getting a bit more irate, kind of a deal. No. But let me ask you that, Jay, because I totally forgot about that for some reason. But Pochettino, when he left, or he was made to leave Spurs, what was the feeling as fans? Like, he took us as far as he could, or he could have taken us further if he had this or whatever?
I think there was a general consensus for fans thinking that he wasn't backed enough, and that he took us as far as he could, and even further than we should have gone. Champions League final and all that. But I think that it was kind of his time. I was upset when it happened, and then them announcing Mourinho less than 12 hours later was, I don't know. I don't know if that made it better or worse. But it was probably his time. Like, looking back on it now, I think it was the right decision. He wasn't getting results on the road, and we were in like 14th place. So I think it was, people aren't upset. Like right now, if you ask a Spurs fan, even a diehard Poch fan, was it his time to go? They'd say yes. And I don't think that you could say the same about him at Chelsea now. So I think he's got some leeway and some time to get those results and get back in the good graces.
Yeah, I almost feel like, Chelsea fans have to think that too. It's like, you got to cook, but people are constantly throwing ingredients at him, and he's like, hold on, I'm making this over here. And then they're like, how about this? How about that? And then they're just constantly throwing shit at him. So it's kind of hard to get something going, especially if you didn't ask for some of those ingredients. And it's making it sound like I listened to one of his press conferences, and he did, without saying it, if you read between the lines, he was like, I don't know, let's see what they did over here. I'll see what I can do. Like, we're going to see what we can do. We're going to work on it, kind of a deal. But, I mean, long may it continue. And I really like the scenario where Fulham puts an end to both of them. I'm all for that. So let's take a look at this weekend over here. Let's focus on our guys first, which actually will bring us to the game of the week as well. I think when you look at City Forest anyway, we're kind of expecting a City win. It's a matter of how bad they're going to beat them or whatever. You never know, though. Forest did give everybody a tough time, especially United. Luton Town, Wolves, Brentford, Everton. Those are interesting games for the bottom of the league. Crystal Palace, Fulham. What do you say to that, Alex?
Yeah, I think Palace they had a weird one against Villa this weekend. It was it's one of those games that makes you absolutely sick if you're a Palace fan and you find a way to lose a game like that. It just like a pit in your stomach. You're looking at 3 points, you're 5 minutes away, and then to lose like they did is just miserable.
And did they get robbed? Why do I remember this like that when I was watching? Was it a decision that's...
No, I don't think so. They were up and they scored in like the 75th, and then they got scored on like the 86th, and then there was a penalty. Chris Richards fouled him in the box. I forget who he fouled, and 2-1, and then Villa killed it off in like the 90 plus 10th or something. But just you'd be sick to your stomach. I think I don't know, good time for Fulham to play them. I guess both teams don't score a ton, so that'll be an interesting thing to watch. A former Fulham player, Joachim Andersen, who was on loan with Fulham the last Premier League campaign, is now with Palace and is excellent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it 0-0. But hopefully, 3 points in a row to be big.
Yeah, those are two teams, at least for me, that I have not been able to make up my mind on it yet. It's like 2 up or 2 down at times. I know where you are with them, Jake, but it feels like I could not tell you. Like, those are two teams I find hard to predict. You say Luton Town, you say Wolves, I know where to put them. You say, I don't know, like Brighton and stuff like that, I know where to put them at the end of the season in my head. But I don't know where to put Palace and Fulham. I think I put them both right about between 8 and 12, for example. But like, how are you viewing those two clubs right now? And Alex is not with them, so you can say whatever you want about Fulham.
I think they're definitely on the wrong side of the top 10. Probably finish around 12 or 13. That'd be a huge year for Palace. I don't think that they're a good squad right now. I think that they're going to have to eke out some tough results. But yeah, I don't know. Fulham, they don't really have the squad that excites me. I don't fear Fulham. I know that you guys knocked us out on penalties in the energy drink cup, but Fulham, I think they're both going to be kind of struggling to get points each week. I don't see either in a relegation scrap, so I think it's going to be somewhere like 12 to 17. You'll see both at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the thing with, we were talking about Fulham's schedule. I mean, Palace's schedule so far has been relatively easier, especially compared to Fulham. I mean, they played, looks like, Sheffield away. They lost at home to Arsenal, only 1-0. Tied Brentford away, beat Wolves home, and then they just lost to Palace. So they have not, they got a schedule coming up where they play United, Newcastle, Tottenham, and Burnley away and stuff like that. So it gets a bit tougher for them. But yeah, I agree. I still see them like mid-table. It really depends on if United and Chelsea climb back up. We kind of almost assume they will, but nothing is a guarantee, especially with the doomsday predictions we just made for them. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, and people said that last year about Chelsea. That like they're going to rebound, they'll climb back in, and they never did. United, I think, are good enough to do that, but until Chelsea prove otherwise, like they are right about where they should be. I think, and I will say last note about this is I think this is the type of game that Fulham needs to get 3 points out of to again, like I said, solidify as a mid-table Premier League club, stay out of the relegation scrap. These are the kind of matches that really do matter. I know it's on the road, but to get a result at minimum and ideally 3 points, that's how you.
Oh, so you would almost take like a draw as a win just because it's away mainly, correct?
I mean, I would be
not a win, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I'd be disappointed with a draw, but would it is what it is. But like Jake said, just be instead of in 15th, this is the kind of match. If you win it, you're more at 10th, 11th, 12th. So like that's the difference between at the end of the season you look back on and the teams that win matches like this and these mid-table battles, the mid-table league within the league. The ones who win matches like this are the ones who end up in maybe sneak into 7th or you're in 8th or 9th. So these are the big ones.
You're going to be our mid-table beat reporter.
Oh, I got you. Sign me up, man. Y'all are arguing about cups, and I'm like, we're set. We're golden. So
next to fixtures, let's take a look at those real quick. Burnley, United, Chelsea, Villa. I mean, at this point, I don't know if you even called it an upset if, one of these teams lose points like we talked about. But Jake, do you see either of them running into trouble this weekend, and which one would run into bigger trouble?
I think they both could potentially drop points here. Burnley are, they're not the same old Burnley where they're going to bore you to death and try to get 1 point. They're going to come at you, and, United are kind of there for the taking in some aspects. So if they can get an early goal and then just kind of handle United, I think that they can get 1 point or maybe all 3. Chelsea at home, I don't think that really makes a difference whether they're home or away. They can't score regardless, barring that one game where Sterling actually looked like a really good player for once. I think Villa are showing that they can be a very potent attack and that they can go get a result against anyone. So I think Chelsea are also in danger of only getting 1 or no points next week.
I can see both, I think, too. I mean, you could think Burnley will look at today and say they've been chasing Bayern all day, and this is pretty much obviously their ideal 11. So they're going to, and it's not a very deep team in terms of talent. They have some game changers at United, but not off the bench. They're not going to bring anybody in. They're running out of wingers due to legal issues and all that kind of stuff. So how about you there, Alex? Which one suffers more, or do they both suffer?
I mean, I think the chance for suffering is higher for United, because if they lose to Burnley, that's when you enter kind of death spiral mode. And if they get embarrassed by Burnley, which, I mean, I don't know what that scoreline would look like, even if it's 1-0 and they just look terrible, that could be the beginning of the end for Ten Hag. If we're not already at the beginning, that could be the point where you could see ownership lose that trust. And I think that Villa are, I don't know what the betting line is, but I would consider them favorites over Chelsea for that match. I think Villa have shown that they are a better team this year than Chelsea are. And I wouldn't be shocked if the line was super close to even or Villa to win. I think Villa would go into that match.
Point, really. I mean, you could argue that, obviously they're a better team in terms of standings. The fact that they play in Europe, I think it goes back to what Jake was saying earlier. These are teams that are not used to playing midweek and then coming back and playing the weekend and stuff. Sure. Not that they're playing a tough game, but still, and they're kind of the favorites in that tournament right now that nobody wanted to be. I mean, Fenerbahce is in there, and that was one team that they did not want in their group, kind of a deal, because I think they were a 2nd seed of all things too, and Fenerbahce was a 1st seed, so they were our luck will get Villa as the 2nd seed in our group, which we did not. But so let's get to the big one.
Yeah, Brighton and Bournemouth.
Battle of South Coast.
Arsenal. How confident are you, Jake? Or is this the more of the season?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I'm more confident than I have been in a long time going into a game at the Emirates. I think we're playing good football, and I mean, the results are pretty similar for Arsenal and Tottenham this season. Only one real big test, and it was home against United, who are not that good. So I think this is the first real test for both teams. and it might be a season-defining fixture for one of these teams, whether that's good or bad. But I don't know. I had just this thought in the back of my head that we're gonna go out and play this football that we've been playing against these lesser sides, and Arsenal just have the quality where they're gonna be like, we're just gonna actually pass around you and counterattack, and you have only 2 people on defense, and we're gonna score. So I don't know. I mean, just history has shown that I should be concerned, but I have a little bit of optimism.
Yeah, the tune has changed, right, Alex? Like the first Jake we spoke to week 1 to now, I can see that the cockiness level is slightly increasing. I like that.
Yeah. They should. They've looked good. You should be more excited and more ready for a match like this. And I think that's what any Spurs or Arsenal fan would want, is for this match to mean something and for it to like genuine. Now, do I think that this match is going to help determine if Arsenal or Spurs win the Premier League? It might help determine, no offense, if Arsenal win the Premier League. I think we can maybe, I don't know if everybody else, I think we can all agree that might be a little early for Spurs at this point. It's to be fighting for the trophy at the end there. But this is the kind of win or a result that can springboard you back into Europe. Absolutely. This is the kind of result that you can look back on and can kind of, like you said, a big turning point inflection for either team. So,
Yeah, I think so, because if Arsenal lose points in there, it kind of gives the illusion that, well, you got to win the big ones, man, if you're going to keep up with City. And especially if City beats, because City play earlier too, right? They play Saturday. So if you increase the point gap there. Yeah, it's going to be, and then if Tottenham wins, I think it's just basically almost announces their arrival. I mean, obviously they've been winning, but I think this would be more of a statement win. I think I agree with the United win. We didn't at the time. I think it looked more like a statement win. Now we're looking at it. I think we're saying, well, maybe it's not that big of a statement, kind of a deal. But Liverpool, West Ham. Obviously, I worry as a lifestyle. This is what I do. But I know. I mean, I'm hoping for some rotation when we play Lask tomorrow, but West Ham, I'm afraid of their counters, but I think we do win this one and we do get goals against them. It's a team that does not defend, I think, as well, and then they will have Europe as well. So how about you guys? Obviously, I might be a little bit biased over here. Alex, what do you see happening there?
Yeah, I see a Liverpool win as well. I think of all the teams playing in Europe, I think West Ham are the most vulnerable, from almost going down last year and some putting all their eggs in the cup, what is it? They were in the Conference League, putting all their eggs in the Conference League basket. It paid off because they stayed up and they won it. And now this is the kind of like, look at all the consequences of my actions, is now, again, you're playing on a Thursday night in the Europa League, and then you get Liverpool the next following weekend. It's like, if they're going to, this is kind of put up or shut up time for them. And I don't know that they're a good enough team to do it. So I think Liverpool should feel good about this one.
How about you, Jake? Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham don't have to travel this week for Europe, which is a bonus. But I don't know. I think it could be similar to what we saw this past weekend, where West Ham get an early goal and then it's just kind of all Liverpool in the second half. I think it'll be more so all Liverpool in the second 70 minutes, where West Ham just only get 20 good minutes, kind of feel like, oh, we can beat Liverpool. And Liverpool is susceptible in the opening half hour. So I think that if they get that goal early, maybe build some confidence, they could possibly get a draw. But I think Liverpool are just good enough, and West Ham are just not at that level yet. They've got a good amount of points so far, and they're higher up on the table, which is great for them. But I think we might see them come back down to reality. Obviously, with that first match against Manchester City, kind of being one peg lower on the ladder, and then Liverpool might drop them even more here.
I think they did that last year too. They kind of like stocked up, and then they were like, "Okay, we're going to Europe now," and then they just kept going down and down and down. And so I think they're like pulling the same thing. They do have an easy fixture, but yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, it's not a crazy prediction to think that Liverpool is going to be scored on first. Sadly, it happens way too often. But I'm actually thinking this rotation, and Europe will help Europe get more like guys like Elliott and them involved and get them more playing time, like Jota, Gakpo, Nunez, and stuff like that. So actually, it might help it. But on our way out, we'll predict the game of the week. Brighton, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Tottenham. Jake, give us a score prediction for that game.
I like how both teams are playing offensively, and Spurs like to leave just 2 at the back when they go forward. And Arsenal don't have that different of a style when they attack. They like to trust their 2 guys back there. So I think it's going to be pretty open, and I think Spurs are going to actually come away with a point, and I'm going to go with 2-2.
Ooh. What you got there, Alex?
I agree on the 2. I think if there's anything we've seen so far, it's that will be chances. I think especially even after you see with Fulham and Arsenal, is that Arsenal were not, even against 10 men, were not able to see that out and get the 3 points that I think they would definitely consider 2 points dropped. So I don't think I would say 2-2, but I think my gut is looking at the table and maybe kind of the teams would be 3-2 Gunners. And when you started to say, I think it's going to be open, I was like, you better not say 3-2 because that's what I'm coming in with. Yeah, I mean, if I was a betting man and I had to put money on it, I'd say something like 3-2 Gunners, but I would not be shocked if it were 2-2 or 3-3 or 4-4 or something wild. And of course, now that we say this, it's going to be a scoreless draw with 2 shots combined on goal.
That's what I was going to say. When he
midfield.
said 2-2, I had the same thought. I'm like, this guy, like literally just took my prediction. But the more we talk about it, I was like, I wonder if this will be kind of like really cagey because both teams are probably do not want to open up too much and we end up. But I do think it ends up in a draw. I like the 2-2, but I can see it going pretty cagey with a 1-1, 0-0 or something like that too. Because of what we just said earlier, I can see both managers not wanting to lose this one first and not, have that. Especially, Lego Head is going to be home, so he's not going to want to lose that. But then I think overall, because a loss says a lot more than a win in this game, I think. In the grand scheme of things, but I won't be watching it live because I'll be watching Liverpool, obviously. But it should be a good game to watch. Alex, you can watch your old cup rivals, Tottenham over there play Arsenal, and it should be a good game. That would have been a fun game to watch. If I picked one game to watch aside from Liverpool, that would probably be it. I'll probably watch the Chelsea Villa game otherwise, but can't watch that either. So I guess we'll just watch Burnley beat up on United instead. But thanks a lot, guys. As always, thanks for all those like listening. Once we clip this, there's going to be a lot of Chelsea and Manchester United hate coming our way. So make sure you guys take cover. We'll be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. And let's see. Hopefully, Alan will be here. So one way or the other, Alex and I can sit back and enjoy the fight that way. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.